Hi, and welcome to the next part of the Operation Alpha motivation series. I use the word motivation. What I'm really talking about is habit building, which is something that I'm really big on. And in this video today, I'm going to be talking about the habits revolving around tracking, measuring, and assessing, and why I believe this is one of the most vital parts of this whole getting in shape, losing weight, burning fat, building muscle puzzle that we're looking to solve. So I suppose the main reason why this is also important is because doing so removes the guesswork and uncertainty over what you're doing, and gets you working with actual data. I've got that quote here from Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad. Yeah, science, bitch. And yeah, that's basically what it is. It's like it's turning all of this into a scientific experiment, your own personal scientific experiment using data, which is very valuable in quite a few different ways. So what data should you be recording? Well, I've divided the data into the stimulus and the effect of what you're doing each week. So we'll start with the stimulus. So the stimulus is obviously what you're doing to try and get the result you're after. So we have nutrition, workout, sleep, and steps. So for your nutrition, there's a couple of ways that you can track it. You could use an old-fashioned food diary, and that could either be written or just using photographs, just taking photos of everything you eat. And that's good if you are just sort of using a kind of more principles type approach and not doing this over here, which is tracking your calories and macros, which involves weighing food, which is obviously, the gold standard way of doing this, but it's not for everyone because obviously it's a bit more fussy. But these are the systems that you have. And as well as that, you could also be tracking your water intake and your fruit and veg. For your workouts, you would be tracking obviously how many you do each week, the duration of them, and maybe even possibly the intensity of how you're training. For your sleep, you'd be looking at duration and quality, a combination of the two. And for your daily steps, hopefully you realize how significant that extra activity can be towards fat loss in particular. Very, very good thing to track. You can use a tracker like the one I have on my wrist. You can get some that are relatively inexpensive these days. Really good investment. So with that, obviously, you're looking at how many in total. And then for these, your calories and your macros, your sleep, and also your steps. What you want to be doing is looking at your 7-day totals and averages. That's where the real value in it lies. So you can see what you're doing consistently. So that's the stimulus covered. So the next thing is measuring, obviously, the effect that your efforts are having. So the simple way of doing this is a combination of these things. So you can take progress photos where you're obviously taking pictures of your body, maybe in your underwear. So you could have a photo of the front of your body, the side of your body, and the back of the body. The measurements, these are circumference measurements. Typically, I recommend doing the stomach, the waist, and the chest, particularly if you're looking for fat loss. There could be some other measurements as well if you're looking to gain some muscle, like your biceps, for example, and your quads, that type of stuff, maybe your calves. And then obviously we're looking at weight, which is the one that people typically tend to fixate on. But what we're looking for here is assessing all of this information together as a collective, rather than fixating on one. And with that, you're looking to do it after you go to the bathroom in the morning and before you're eating your breakfast. Something else you may also go into, even kind of more in a more sort of advanced type of way, if you want to look a little bit further than just the physical measurements, you might be looking to assess your mood, your energy levels, and also how stressed you feel. With the more sort of clinical measurements, the photos and the weight, etc., you want to ensure that you have the same variables and conditions each time. And what I really recommend is that this is done on a weekly basis. So once a week, you are assessing what the previous week's stimulus has had in terms of an effect. So, how does this benefit you? Well, obviously what you're doing is you're creating a quite a sophisticated but quite easy to produce level of precision around the whole process. And it's not just measuring what's happening the week before, but how this also translates into precision with the actions that you then decide to take as a result. So your process goals that you have already set, or new ones that you're going to set, or making adjustments to the current ones, well, you've got a level of precision that means that you can just make some very subtle adjustments that are therefore a lot easier to implement because they're a lot smaller. And the great thing about this is that small changes can actually have a great effect. They can just be that little tipping point that you wouldn't be aware of or able to create if you didn't have this precision over here. So it just makes the process that much easier. So I'm just going to adjust the camera just to get the bottom bit in as well. So we've got all this scientific type stuff should be fairly obvious in terms of the experiment. But there are also some mental benefits to doing this as well, because obviously we've already said it's removing the guesswork and uncertainty that can happen, and it can be quite a stressful experience at times when you're trying to change your physique and improve your health, and you can get into this mindset where you're not really sure what's going on, and you can create a narrative around the whole situation where you can either become very negative about your progress, or conversely, but less often, sometimes some people can become a little bit perhaps overestimating how well they're doing. But generally speaking, people tend to get quite negative about what's going on. So if you've got this process going on all the time, you're going to be able to see and acknowledge the progress that you've created. Because you're taking the stats every week, and you might be, say you started doing this 8 months ago, if you're feeling like a bit fat or not liking what you see in the mirror, well, you can compare your photos and your measurements to those of 8 months ago. You can see how much progress you've made in that time frame, and then you can extrapolate and say, if I carry on the way that I am, in another 8 months, I'm going to have made this much progress, which again is something that's obviously going to make you feel a lot better. The other mental benefit is, potentially it can prevent an unawareness of what's going on if the numbers aren't moving the way that you would like. And that awareness wouldn't necessarily be there if we weren't doing all this stuff. And then obviously that's going to highlight that certain things need to change. And just by tracking again, it should become fairly obvious from measuring all this stuff which things need to change as well. So you can highlight the problem and then take the action. So yeah, doing this every week, basically what happens is this whole journey that you're on, it makes every single week count. Whether it's a good or bad week, if you're tracking and measuring, actually it's always good because you are working on a solution and you're drawing ever closer to it. And therefore, ultimately, you're drawing closer to the goal, the outcome that you're looking for. Okay, so I'll wrap that up. If you have any feedback or questions, you can email me at wolfpack@operation-alpha.com. Cheers.